let's say we're talking about two people in relationship, and I'm just going to draw them as circles, just little circles, just nodes on a graph, as if. And we've noticed that emotional safety is a thing, and that there's both a personal and interpersonal component. The personal component would be the degree to which a person can create emotional safety for themselves. So I'll just say, can I be self-nurturing to the degree that I know how to self-soothe, that I know how to take care of my body, that I know how to calm down when things are stressful and to notice that I'm under stress and do all the things. Like there's a huge...
Would you mind putting a P for personal? Read aloud as you write.
Personal creation of emotional safety. So, and each person needs to do this. So I can draw a similar circle over here. I'm not going to just do that just yet, but the sense of there's a kind of an arrow going from self back to self.
Right.
Okay. And similarly, a person can create emotional safety for another person. So, this effort is an outgoing effort. And I haven't labeled the people yet. So maybe we could call this person A and this person B. But so B, personal creation of emotional safety for self. Okay, which is, in this case is self B, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now we have the action of B creating emotional safety for A. So this is this arrow basically. And this is a really nice thing to do, but we would hope that in addition to that if A was reciprocating, say A was creating emotional safety for B.
Mm-hmm. You don't have to write it.
Okay, because it takes time. So A is creating emotional safety for B, and that is fine and well, but there is actually a need for B to notice. So there's essentially a next action, which is that if A is creating emotional safety for B, but B isn't feeling emotional safe, even in the presence of actual emotional safety being created for B, then to some extent there's a separate action that's needed. It's not that B is trying to create emotional safety for itself in a sense of one, or B trying to create emotional safety for another in a sense of two, but that B has to genuinely be able to receive emotional safety from other people when in the presence of emotional safety created for B. Because if like there's a discernment there, right? The discernment is that if, for example, B isn't feeling emotional safe because A hasn't created emotional safety for B, or hasn't done it genuinely, or there's something wrong with it, then of course you wouldn't have B want to feel emotionally safe when there wasn't emotional safety in the field. But if there was emotional safety in the field and B had some projection or some inhibition or some belief that there was no possible way another person could create emotional safety for them, or just was in denial of the fact that the field was a field that was safe, then there's a kind of trauma that's going on there. Like the trauma is that they just can't imagine feeling emotionally safe that was created by another person. And so in effect, when we're looking at this, we're actually looking for skill in all three of these ways, right? This third one is a discernment of the safety created by other.
From other.
By, from. Right? And so in effect, it can go wrong in two ways. It can be a failure to recognize an unsafe situation, and it can be a failure to recognize a safe situation. And so in this sense, we do need to have, in the sense of emotional maturity, like if I'm basically claiming that B is emotionally mature, I'm wanting it to be the case that B has skills in all three of these areas. And if there's an absence of skill in one or more of these particular areas, then that's a place where actual development needs to happen, where there's a kind of trauma of some sort or another. There's some sort of thing that is needing looking into in order for the relationship to be healthy. And when we're saying this, we're not saying that B is unique in this, because the same diagram could be drawn for A. Right? I could talk about how A is going to create emotional safety for themselves, how A is going to create emotional safety for B, and how A needs to be able to recognize the emotional safety that B created for A. And so, in this sense, there is a reciprocity now that is fully happening, because without all six of these things occurring, then the balance of the relational field is not rightly held. And so this to me feels to be a kind of a sort of a reification of how one does relationship process. And I don't want to draw it, but there's essentially a meta level, right? Which is, how does B observe its self-creation for its own safety? Like I can point back to, is B self-aware enough to notice its capacity to create emotional safety for itself and therefore to self-heal? Is B self-conscious enough to recognize the skillfulness with which it's holding the creation of emotional safety for another? And is B looking at its own capacity to perceive correctly the degree to which it's perceiving correctly emotional safety is created by others? So it's a discernment about discernment. And so I guess I can draw these as little arrows, but the point here is that you only need to do this once, right? So in effect, there's an echo of my self process when I'm trying to do healing, which is looking at all three of these meta factors. So I guess I can label them as 4, 5, and 6. And so this is the model. I'm sorry it's complicated, but I don't know how to make it any simpler. This is genuinely the simplest possible model of what does the dynamic of emotional maturity feel like in a peer-to-peer relational context.